So my name's Alan DeGraffenreid. I was at Ohio State from 1988 to 1992 was my last season. I got my degree in 93. I actually walked on as a place kicker. And after having a good state track meet, I actually moved to wide receiver. Coach Zook moved me to wide receiver. I did not play football in high school. I was only the place kicker. I had to learn how to play football while I was at Ohio State. Was fortunate enough to play along guys like Brian Stabline and Jeff Graham or Bobby Olive, who taught me how to play wide receiver, how to become a successful wide receiver. I did not grow up watching football. My dad didn't like football. My mom didn't like football until I started playing football, started kicking footballs. None of us paid any real attention to football. So I was not I liked Ohio State, but was not raised a fan, was not raised watching football. Am a diehard fan now. We do not wear that certain color in my house during that week. That does not happen. My children do not talk about buying cars or that color. So we are diehards now. My mom, who recently passed away, was the most diehard of us all. Became a huge football fan once I started playing. But like I said, I walked on. Was not recruited. I was what was called a recruited walk-on because I was first team All-State kicker. Just didn't realize. I always tell people that was the smartest dumb thing I've ever done was to walk on and play football at Ohio State. I didn't realize how competitive it was. I didn't realize what I was going up against. But like I said, I was really fortunate to go against some future first rounders like a Vinnie Clark and other Roger Harper type people that were defensive backs that I got to train against, and watching the Jeff Grahams and the Bobby Olives, the Bernard Edwards, Joey Galloways, watching those guys play and figuring out how to do it by mimicking what they did was really how I figured it out.
Now, when you say you were where'd you go to high school at?
I went to Princeton High School. I don't know if you're familiar with Alex Higdon was a big guy. Princeton in Cincinnati, so just outside Cincinnati in Sharonville, Ohio.
Okay, which is a good program.
Oh yeah, we won state my senior year. That was the last time we won state, but yeah, it was very much a powerhouse against that other blue team, Moeller.
I wasn't familiar, right?
Coming up. Yeah.
But you still weren't a football player, even though you're in a football program. That's pretty interesting.
I grew up playing soccer. I've been playing soccer since I was probably 5 years old. Was a standout soccer player in high school as well as a standout track athlete. So it's actually pretty funny that I would end up playing football. I actually was raised, the guy that lived next door to me, Dave Upthegrove, hung out with the Bengals, a lot of Bengals players, Lewis Breed and Isaac Curtis. He had sold most of those guys' cars, and they would come to the house to hang out. And I was just some little kid just a little skinny little kid, 120-pound kid hanging around with those guys, not realizing that one day some of those guys would actually be my teammates. So it was pretty crazy with that.
Yeah, so you're preferred walk-on, and who else was who were the kickers at the time there?
Pat O'Mara was the kicker. I'm not sure exactly. Matt France had just left. Pat O'Mara had somehow been talked into coming back, I think it was. Him and John Berger kind of battled for that position. Pat was the kicker that year. And then the next year, they gave a full-ride scholarship to Tim Williams, who was an outstanding kicker. So I realized the kicking dream was pretty much over. And if I was going to get a scholarship, I needed to move over and just start really focusing on playing receiver, figuring out what coverages were, and figuring out how to block and how to catch and all the crazy stuff that I didn't really know how to do.
Oh, soccer player, you don't use your hands, right? Yeah,
because I grew up playing baseball, but that was the only hand sport I really played. Basketball, catching basketball is a lot different than catching football.
Right.
So like I said, the kicking dream pretty much ended for me. After they gave Tim Williams a scholarship, and I realized I wasn't going to get that scholarship, but I did end up earning a scholarship my fourth and fifth years. I was on scholarship at Ohio State, so that was a big plus for me.
So you're in the midst of this, and you're making the transition, and you're walking across campus, and all this good fun is going on. At what point did you realize this is really serious?
Actually, when I was a walk-on, when Coach Cooper first got there, it was his first year. He didn't let walk-ons go out for warm-up. So we're all just sitting in the locker room, and guys are coming back in like, oh, man, it's so great out there. And we're just like terrified, like what's going to happen when these doors open. So once the game was ready to kick off, he let us all run out of the tunnel together. And when you've got, at that point, it's probably 93, 94,000 people wearing all scarlet and gray, and you run around that curve, you realize this is not only is this real, this is extremely real, and you are a part of something that's much bigger than you, which I think is really when it hit home for me that Buckeye Nation was real, and this was a brotherhood that I really was going to enjoy being a part of. I was going to work as hard as I needed to stay a part of Buckeye Nation.
And then when you are a part of the campus life as well, and you're like, well, I was just a walk-on a few days ago or a few years ago, but now I'm one of the wide receivers. You see me on TV. How does that, I mean, because I know the way I reacted, I graduated the year you got there, or the year before you got there. So I know how my reaction was to see Chris Carter walking around like, there's Chris Carter, you know. So is that a, oh my goodness, or is it like, oh guys, I'm just a guy? How does that play out?
I was mostly just a guy. I mean, I started about, I think, 4 games my senior year. So I was known on campus, but there was a lot of people that didn't know I played football because I was not a, you know, I wasn't the face of the team or anything like that. So my first 3 or 4 years there, the only reason you know I played football is because I had the ponies on or whatever the shoes were. And then once I earned my varsity letter, then I started wearing a Letterman's jacket. But a lot of, you know, walk across campus for me I was never that guy. I was always standing next to that guy maybe, but I think people on campus were more, he's just another guy. I have always worked hard to be just another guy. And I do downplay a lot of the accomplishments I've had as an athlete because I enjoy it when I know someone for 6, 7, 8 months, maybe we work together, and 6, 7, 8 months later they say, hey, is it somebody just told me that you played football for the Buckeyes? And I'm like, oh yeah, I did that. And they're just like, I've known you for 8 months and you're just now telling me this?
You're just not bringing it up, right?
You never asked and it never came up. I said, I don't know how to bring that up in conversation. They said, I don't know, maybe I used to play for the Buckeyes, just to bring it up. And I'm like, you know, if you met me and I told you I played football professionally and I played football for the Buckeyes, I don't know how people are going to react. So I don't let people know until they ask the question. I never lie about it. I do always tell the truth if you ask me the question, but if you don't ask me the question, it doesn't come up.
Well, it's like saying, I also did this and I drove a car back then. I mean, there are a lot of things that you do that make up who you are, but doesn't necessarily mean that that's the first thing I'm going to say, hey, guess what? Yeah, that's pretty cool. So,
and a lot of people have very negative opinions of professional athletes, and I don't want them to attach the negative side, and they assume I'm this or I'm that or I'm the other. If I walk in and say, yeah, I used to play ball with Joe Montana, people are like, he's cocky. No, I'm not cocky. I'm just letting you know I used to play ball with Joe Montana. You know, Joe's a great guy, you know, that type of thing.
Well, no, that was the next question. So you get to the end of what was a ride that you didn't expect to have happen. And now you can say, it says DeGraffenreid on the back of the shirt, and I've earned that.
Oh, yeah.
Now it's coming to a close. So senior tackle and all that fun stuff. Okay. I don't even think I have to ask the rest of that question.
Senior tackle for me was really emotional because I had been a walk-on and I had earned a scholarship. I had worked so hard to become a Buckeye, and it was really emotional for me because I was very much spent most of my time with a chip on my shoulder at Ohio State. Was not nearly as good as I thought I was, as most of us I'm sure weren't.
Right.
And to have had so many great coaches and spent so many great times with these guys was very emotional for me because at that time I assumed my football career was over, and I felt like it was just starting, but I also assumed it was over because, you know, a guy with, I think I had 8 catches in my 5 years, or my 3 seasons at Ohio State on the field, and a guy with 8 catches doesn't go pro. So what am I going to do now? I mean, it's pretty much over. I'm going to get my master's degree and hopefully marry my girlfriend and have some kids, and that's kind of it. And then not long after senior tackle, we were practicing for the bowl, and one of my receiver coach, Coach Mike Stock, said, what are you going to do to get ready for next year? And I was like, what do you mean? I'm graduating. He was like, oh, no, you need to go. You need to find your way to the combine. You need to play at the next level. I was like, what do you mean? He was like, with your size, your speed, and the things you've just learned in this last year, he said, you could be in camp somewhere next year. And I had never even considered it because, you know, I played alongside Jeff Graham, who was a 2nd-round pick, and Vinnie Clark, 1st-round picks. And I always saw those guys as so much better than me and so elite, which is actually true. Those guys are so much better than me. But I just didn't think I could compete at that level. And then fortunately, after we got back from the bowl, I started doing 2-a-days. I would lift heavy, and then I would train distance, and I would sprint, and I would stretch, and I did everything to get ready. I didn't get invited to the combine, but we had a pro day at Ohio State, and bench pressed 225 19 times. I weighed about 205 pounds. I ran a 4.38 40-yard dash, and people started noticing me. They were like, this kid's, he went to Ohio State, so we know he knows the foundations of what to be a football player is all about. And if he can run like that, and if he can catch the ball at all, then we can do something with him. So I started getting a lot of notoriety, and was fortunate enough to sign a contract with the Cincinnati Bengals. I got a little bit of a signing bonus, was happy with that. And if it would have ended there, I would have been just happy as a clam.
Right.
But had a really good camp with the Bengals. They cut me, put me on practice squad, continued to get better, going against the Mike Brims of the world and competing every day. And they cut me towards the end of the season and went to Kansas City, got picked up by the Chiefs, got put on their practice squad. We actually went to the AFC Championship game that year. We lost to Buffalo. But, I'm playing alongside Joe Montana, Marcus Allen, Derek Thomas, and these guys are just the epitome of what it takes to be a pro, and just learning so much from those guys and that system and the West Coast system. And it made me somebody as an ex-Buckeye who understood the West Coast offense. Everybody knew I'm a smart guy because at Ohio State, that's what they make us. They make us very smart, very fundamentally sound. And a guy from Ohio State's going to know how to lift weights and do things that some other schools might not know. And so that actually carried me throughout. Was with Kansas City for a better part of 2 years. Then I went to camp. I went to the World League in Europe, played 10 games over there in 95 and in 97. Also went to camp with the Packers the year they won the Super Bowl. And my 97, I went to camp with the 49ers. Played alongside Jerry Rice, T.O. So it was a phenomenal 10 years for me to play alongside so many great characters. I mean, from the comedy and things like that, but also great athletes and just really strong men. And, my family, my sister, I have 3 older sisters, and one of my sisters played basketball at Louisville. She also walked on, and I have, my wife, and I have 2 daughters now, and they all make fun of me, but I tell them that I'm probably the most blessed person you've ever met because of Ohio State. If I wasn't dumb enough to walk on Ohio State, I don't think my life would have been nearly as great as it's been.
Great.
Because being a Buckeye, being a former Buckeye, being a Buckeye for life, and being a part of that brotherhood means so much more than anybody that's watching us will ever understand. When you walk in a room and you say you play for the Buckeyes, it doesn't really matter where you are in the country. People say, "Oh, Ohio State. Oh." And it hits people hard that that's what you did, and it's just an amazing feeling. And like I said, when a NFL coach or whatever other conference coach, when you go especially in the weight room, I went to Green Bay, I was with the Packers, and I went in the weight room, and this guy was trying to do hang cleans, and I was like, dude, that's not how you do hang cleans. I said, put some weight on here, let me show you how it's done. And I put like 315 pounds on. I'm a 200-pound wide receiver, and I'm snatching 315. And the strength coach looks at me and he says, "Where's you learn how to do that?" I said, "I went to Ohio State." He said, "Oh yeah, that's right. You went to Ohio State."
Yeah, oh yeah.
Because you just know if a guy went to Ohio State,
Right.
not only is he going to lift a lot of weight, but he knows how to do it properly.
Right.
So it's it's ingrained in all of us, each and every one of us, from the Joey Galloways to that guy you never heard of. We're all wired the same way. We all bleed scarlet. Well, we don't all bleed scarlet and gray, but a lot of us do. I almost named my daughter 83 because I love Ohio State so much. That was one of the names I wanted to name my daughter. But of course, my wife is not only a gorgeous lady, but she's also a smart lady. So that didn't happen.
That's fantastic. Well, on behalf of us that didn't get there and that were on campus when everything was going on, this is why I do this show, because it's nice to talk, and we're talking to other fans and band members and everybody as well. But it's just the joy that you have for this, and again, it was unexpected, which is even better, I think. And I think that a lot of us told me,
if you'd have told me when I was 15, even 17 years old, that my football career, I would have had a football career, would have fallen over. And a lot of people laughed at me when I said I was going to walk on Ohio State. A lot of people laughed at me when I said I was going to go pro. And I just think the fundamentals of what you learn being a Buckeye lets you understand that you can accomplish anything. because that's what's bred. That's what we're taught by our coaches, and we're taught through the system that as a Buckeye, we don't necessarily see ourselves as better than everybody else, but we do know that we can compete with anybody at any level, at anything. So that's one of the greatest things about being a Buckeye for me, is that no matter what challenge you put in front of me, I know that I can compete, and I always compete to win. So that's what Buckeyes do. Go Bucks, right?
There you go. I don't think I need to say anymore. Appreciate your time. Thank you very much. All right, we'll check back with you later.
All right, thanks for having me out. Appreciate it.